Table Notes, Accessibility and Practice, Colorado Department of Labor and Employment. What do we do with notes on, around, or inside our table? Let's talk about it. On my screen, I have an example note that's beneath my table. I have an annual minimum wage table, and 2 rows beneath this table, I have a note that says, note, Colorado's local minimum wage and some local minimum wages inflation adjust annually. Read more in info number 1, hyperlinked, wage law overall, info number 3, tips and wages, and info number 19, local minimum wage report summary. This is a good example of a note that is not necessarily information that is crucial to read before you read the table, but is good information to have after or around the table. I don't want to put the information inside my data table because it's not data. In other words, I don't want to add a row and add a cell, or in fact even a merge cell at the bottom of my table, because that would give the impression that this note is a piece of data when it is not. It is not a type of minimum wage. It is not a minimum wage in a certain year. It wouldn't really fit inside of this data. I'm going to go ahead and delete that row that I created in my table. Instead, I'm actually going to make sure that my note immediately follows my table so that anyone who is reading using a screen reader is going to be able to read this and know that it is connected to the table that I just read. I noticed that I had a few spaces, and so I'm actually going to delete the rows that are blank in between my table and that note. Perfect. So now I have my table, which will be read first according to its name, its headers, and then according to the column and the row. And then after the table is read, the user will then read my note. So that's one type of note, a note that you can read after you've read the table. You'll notice in my table I have a few blanks. This is because this information in this table isn't applicable. So I could put a dash, or I could put NA for not applicable in those cells, which I'm going to do as an example. But some people don't always know what NA means or stands for. And as a good, accessible creator of content, I want to make sure I provide my users with all the information they need to access my content. So what I'm going to do is actually create a row above my table. And this is where I'm going to put the note about the data in my table, because I don't want people to come across that NA note and think, what does that mean? I haven't heard anything about this yet. Instead, I want to tell them before they get there that they are going to encounter something called NA and that it means not applicable. So in my note in A1, I'm going to write note colon, quote, N/A, end quote, means not applicable, period. So now my important notes that everyone needs to have before they interpret my data in my table all occur in A1 in my table. This is crucial. All important notes must be in A1, even if there's 5 or 6 notes. You want to make sure that they are included before someone reads your table if they are about the data in your table, and they need to know them before they engage with the data. This is because screen reader and assistive technology users read using read order. Read order reads top to bottom, left to right. They will not skim or visually skip to the last thing on the page because there's nothing there that tells them to do that. So it's very important that we put all important need to know information right there at the top. So here's my note at the top that says all the crucial information. Now I have my title, now I have my headers and my table, and then I have my last note with all the not so crucial information. Great. There we have notes. Find more videos on our YouTube channel at CDLE_DLSS.